The shuttle shook as it passed through the docking field. Park pressed her hand against the cold window and watched the Galactic Union station grow larger. It was massive, bigger than any city she had ever seen on Earth. Lights blinked from thousands of windows. Ships of all shapes moved around it like fish swimming near a reef. "Ambassador Park," said the young man sitting beside her. His name was Lee, and he was her translator. He was also very nervous. His leg had been bouncing since they left Earth orbit. "I have reviewed the files on all 47 species we might encounter today, but I must be honest with you. I am not confident about the language. Their vocal range includes sounds humans cannot make." Turned from the window and smiled at him. "Then we will do our best and apologize for any mistakes. That is all anyone can do." Did not look comforted. He was 26 years old and had graduated at the top of his class from the Linguistic Academy in Seoul. He had studied alien languages for 4 years, but studying something in a classroom and facing it in real life were very different things. Understood this well. She had felt the same fear on her first day as a teacher, standing in front of 30 children who stared at her like she was a strange creature. The shuttle landed with a gentle bump. The doors slid open and stepped onto the station for the first time. The air smelled strange. It was clean but also filled with scents she could not name. The hallway was wide enough for creatures much larger than humans to walk through. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and everywhere she looked there were aliens. Some were tall and thin with skin like tree bark. Others were short and round, covered in colorful feathers. A group of beings that looked like walking jellyfish floated past, their bodies flickering with light. Kept her face calm, but inside her heart beat fast with wonder. A Galactic Union official met them at the entrance. It was a species that looked somewhat like a deer standing on 2 legs. Its large eyes blinked rapidly as it looked at. "Ambassador Park," it said through a translation device on its chest. "Welcome to the station. I am representative. I will guide you to the reception hall. Please follow me and stay close to your escort." Noticed how's eyes kept darting around. The walked quickly, as if it wanted to get this task finished as soon as possible. "Is something wrong?" asked as they walked. Hesitated. "The delegation arrived this morning. They have brought a juvenile with them. Many representatives are uncomfortable." Leaned close to and whispered, "They are apex predators. They come from a death world. Class 7. Very dangerous environment. Their species evolved to hunt and kill. They have claws that can cut through metal and teeth that can crush bone." "I read the file," said calmly. "Then you know why everyone is nervous. They are bringing a child predator into a room full of prey species. Some representatives have already left the station in protest." Thought about this. On Earth, predators and prey existed in the same world. Lions and zebras, wolves and deer. But they did not sit in the same room and try to make treaties. Here in space, evolution had created intelligent beings from all kinds of creatures, and they were all expected to work together. It was, she thought, both wonderful and terrifying. The reception hall was a grand room with high ceilings and floating lights. Hundreds of beings filled the space, talking in languages that sounded like music, clicks, and rumbles. Tables were set with food and drink from many worlds. Flags and banners hung from the walls, showing the symbols of different species. Spotted them immediately. They were impossible to miss. The 2 adults stood near the far wall, separated from the other guests by an empty space that no one seemed willing to cross. They were tall, almost 2.5 meters. Their bodies were covered in short fur that ranged from dark gray to black. Their faces had long snouts filled with sharp teeth, and their eyes glowed with a soft yellow light. Muscles rippled under their fur. Claws, thick and curved, extended from their fingers. They looked like nightmares given form. Understood why the prey species were afraid. But then she noticed the third. It was smaller, barely taller than herself. It stood close to the larger female, sometimes hiding behind her leg, sometimes peeking out to look at the room. Its ears were too big for its head, and its eyes were wide and constantly moving. The cub watched as other guests moved away whenever the young looked in their direction. She saw how the cub's ears drooped each time this happened. She saw how the mother, the clan mother named, placed a protective hand on her child's shoulder. Ambassador Park said, "I will introduce you to the other delegations. We should start with the collective, then the assembly, then the—" "I would like to meet the first," said. Froze, its large eyes went even wider. "That is not recommended. Protocol suggests building relationships with aligned species before approaching potential threats." "They are not our enemies," said. "They are potential friends we have not made yet." Grabbed her arm. "Ambassador, please, this is our first day. We should not take risks. Let us follow the protocol." Gently removed his hand. "Look at that child. Look at how alone they are. Everyone in this room is treating them like monsters. How do you think that feels?" "They are predators. It is natural for other species to be cautious." "Being cautious is one thing. Making a child feel unwelcome is another." Straightened her formal jacket. "I did not come to space to follow the same patterns of fear that caused so many problems on Earth. If we want to be different, we have to act different." She walked across the hall. She felt many eyes watching her. She heard whispers in languages she did not understand, but she kept walking until she stood before the. Looked down at her. The clan mother's claws extended slightly, an automatic response to someone approaching. Up close, could smell something like pine and iron coming from the predators. "I am Park," she said, bowing her head slightly. "Ambassador of Earth. I wanted to welcome you to the station and say that I am honored to meet your people." Stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly she spoke. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "You are the first to approach us, small one. Either you are very brave or very foolish." Smiled. "On my world, we often say that those two things are the same." Behind Sleg, Young peeked out at the strange human. His golden eyes were filled with curiosity. Pretended not to notice, but she felt her heart warm. She had seen that look before in hundreds of children over her years of teaching. It was the look of someone who wanted to understand, but was too shy to ask. The reception continued around them. Talked with about Earth, about the long journey through space. Stood nervously nearby, ready to help with translation. And all the while, Little watched from the shadows, listening to every word. None of them knew that in less than an hour, everything would change. The reception hall grew louder as more guests arrived. Had returned to his side after her conversation with the. He looked pale and kept glancing toward the predators in the corner. "That was dangerous," he whispered. "What if she had attacked you?" "She was not going to attack me," said. "She was nervous. There is a difference." "How can you tell the difference with an alien species?" Shrugged. Body language. Eyes. The way she kept her child close. Aggressive predators do not bring their young to meetings. Protective mothers do. Opened his mouth to argue, but a loud voice cut through the noise of the hall. "This is unacceptable." A group of pushed through the crowd. Their leader was taller than, with darker fur and sharper horns. Its voice was shrill with anger. "Representative," said, stepping forward, "please calm yourself. This is a diplomatic event." "Diplomatic," pointed toward the. "They bring a predator cub into a room filled with civilized species, and you call this diplomatic. That creature should not be here. It is a danger to everyone." Watched as other species began to gather around the argument. Some nodded in agreement with. Others simply watched with curious or worried eyes. Near the walls, body went stiff. Her claws extended fully, long and sharp like knives. It was not a threat, realized. It was a stress response. The clan mother was trying to stay calm, but her body was reacting to the hostility in the room. Behind her, pressed closer to his mother's leg. His ears were flat against his head. His small body trembled. "The collective demands that the cub be removed immediately," continued. We cannot conduct business while that thing is present. What if it attacks? What if it injures someone? They have no control over their violent instincts. That is not true, said. Her voice was low and dangerous. We have more control than you know. We choose not to hunt. We choose to be here in peace. You insult my son with your fear. Fear laughed, a harsh barking sound. We do not fear you, predator. We simply refuse to be eaten. The crowd murmured. The tension in the room was thick enough to taste. Could see guards around the edges of the hall reaching for their weapons. This was going wrong, very, very wrong. Started to move forward, hopping to say something that might calm the situation. But before she could speak, something else happened. Broke. The young cub had been enduring the stares and the whispers all day. He had heard the cruel words, felt the fear and hatred directed at him and his mother. He was only a child, barely old enough to understand politics and diplomacy. All he knew was that everyone in this room thought he was a monster. And now they were shouting at his mother. Darted out from behind, his small legs carried him across the floor faster than anyone expected. Gasps and screams filled the hall. A fainted. Guards shouted commands. Did not attack the representative. He did not run toward the ones who had been cruel. Instead, he ran toward the only being in the room who had shown his family any kindness. He ran toward. And when he reached her, he grabbed her sleeve in his teeth and bit down. The fabric tore slightly, felt the pressure of small, sharp teeth against her arm, though they did not break the skin. She looked down and saw a pair of golden eyes staring up at her, wild with fear and confusion. Everything happened at once. Protect the ambassador, someone shouted. Guards raised their weapons, pointing them at the cub, screamed and fell backward, crashing into a table. They began to stampede toward the exits. Other species pressed against the walls, trying to get away from what they were sure would be a bloodbath. Roared, the sound shook the walls. She moved toward her son, but guards blocked her path, weapons glowing with deadly energy. Do not move, predator, a guard shouted. Release the hostage or we will fire. He is just a child, screamed. He is just a child. No one listened. The room was filled with panic. Species that had spent centuries fearing predators could not see anything but a monster attacking an innocent victim. But saw something different. She saw a scared little boy who did not know how to express his feelings. She saw a child who had reached out to the only person who had been nice to him. She saw the same thing she had seen dozens of times in her classroom, when a frustrated student would push or hit or bite because they did not have the words to explain their pain. She did not scream, she did not pull away, she did not cry for help. Instead, she looked down at the cub still holding her sleeve, and she smiled. Then very gently, she tugged her sleeve back. His eyes went wide. He had expected her to fight, to scream, to show fear like everyone else. He did not understand why this small creature was looking at him with such soft eyes. Tugged again, playfully this time, like a game. The room had gone silent. Everyone watched, frozen in place, as the human ambassador played tug-of-war with a predator cub. His grip loosened. His ears, which had been flat with fear, slowly rose with confusion. He released the fabric and sat back on his legs, staring at with complete bewilderment. Crouched down, making herself small. She was now at eye level with the cub, her face just centimeters from his sharp teeth. You must be overwhelmed, she said softly. Her translator pendant converted her words into the language. Too many strangers, too much noise, people saying mean things about you and your mother. That is very hard, I understand. His eyes grew wet. A small whimper escaped his throat. On my world, continued, when children feel scared and angry, they sometimes do things they do not mean. It does not make them bad, it makes them children. She reached slowly into the small bag at her side. Every guard in the room tensed, held her breath. Still on the floor, covered his eyes. pulled out a small wrapped candy, butterscotch. She had brought a whole bag of them from Earth, planning to share them with new friends she might make. She placed the candy in her open palm and held it toward. "This is a sweet from my planet. It tastes like sugar and warmth. Would you like to try it?" Looked at the candy, he looked at, then he turned his head and looked at his mother. Stood frozen, surrounded by guards with weapons pointed at her chest. But she was not looking at the guards. She was looking at the small human who knelt before her son without fear. Slowly, carefully nodded. Reached out with one clawed hand. He took the candy from his palm, his sharp claws brushing against her soft skin without leaving a mark. He unwrapped it carefully, as if it were made of glass. Then he put it in his mouth. His eyes went wide again, but this time with surprise and delight. A small purring sound came from his chest. His tail, which had not noticed before, began to wag slightly. Smiled good. Nodded, his mouth full of butterscotch. Stood up and turned to face the room. Her voice was calm but carried clearly. "This child is not a monster. He is a frightened boy who has been treated badly by people who should know better. I am unharmed. There is no threat here. Put down your weapons and let his mother through." No one moved. His voice hardened. "Now." The guards looked at each other. One by one, they lowered their weapons. A path opened and rushed through, dropping to her knees and pulling her son into her arms. She looked at with eyes that glistened with tears. "His voice broke. "You did not run, you did not fear him." "There was nothing to fear," said simply. "He is just a child, and children need kindness, not weapons." The reception hall remained silent. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species stood still, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. A human, one of the weakest species in the galaxy, had just done the impossible. She had faced a predator without fear. And she had won with a smile. The reception ended early that night. Most of the guests left quickly, speaking in hushed voices. The delegation refused to stay in the same building as the other species, simply did not know what to think. But as the hall emptied, something strange happened. A small group of beings did not leave. They stayed near the walls, watching with curious eyes. When she walked past them toward the exit, they bowed their heads slightly. Not in fear, in something that looked like respect. Noticed but said nothing. She was tired. Her arm ached where had grabbed it, though the skin was not broken. Walked beside her, still shaking slightly. "I cannot believe what just happened," he said for the 10th time. "You should be dead. You should be injured at the very least. How are you so calm?" "I am not calm," admitted. "My heart is still beating very fast, but I have learned to hide my fear. It is an important skill when working with children." That was not a child. That was a predator cub with teeth that could tear through metal. Stopped walking and turned to face him. "I know this is hard to understand, but I need you to listen to me. That cub did not attack me. He grabbed my sleeve. That is all. On Earth, human children do the same thing when they are upset. They grab, they pull, sometimes they bite. It is not violence. It is communication. But he has claws, he has fangs. And human children have hands and teeth. The tools are different. The meaning is the same." She started walking again. "Fear makes us see monsters everywhere. If we want to survive in this galaxy, we need to see clearly." They returned to their quarters. Asked the station computer to send her any files about child development. She read them until her eyes grew heavy and she fell asleep at her desk. The next morning, woke to find 17 messages waiting for her. 12 were from different species asking to schedule meetings. 3 were complaints from the collective demanding an apology for reckless behavior. 1 was a formal thank you from Clan Mother. The last message was from a group called the Neutral Observers. Had read about them in her briefings. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, ancient beings who had stopped participating in politics millions of years ago. They simply watched and recorded. Their archives held the complete history of the known universe. The message was simple. We would like to speak with Ambassador Park regarding the events of last night. This is not a request. This is an observation opportunity. Was nervous when she told him about it. The neutral observers do not speak to anyone. They just watch. Why would they want to talk to you? I do not know, said, putting on her formal jacket, but I think we should find out. The meeting room was in the oldest part of the station. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. Floating in the center of the room was a being unlike any had seen. It had no solid body. It was made of light, shifting and flowing like water in zero gravity. Eyes appeared and disappeared across its surface. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Ambassador Park, thank you for coming. I am Observer 17. I have been recording galactic history for 6 million years. Bode, I am honored to meet you. We have been watching the footage from last night's event. It has raised questions that we cannot answer with our existing knowledge of humanity. The observer's lights shifted to a deeper blue. May we ask you some questions? Of course. When the predator cub grabbed your arm, our sensors detected no increase in your fear response. Your heart rate remained stable. You produced no stress hormones. You showed no signs of panic. The observer paused. This is impossible. All prey species show fear when attacked by predators. It is biology. It is instinct. Yet you showed nothing. Thought for a moment before answering. I did feel fear, but I did not act on it. Explain. On my world, humans are both predator and prey. We hunt, but we are also hunted. Our ancestors learned that fear is useful but not always helpful. If you run from every shadow, you will never accomplish anything. So we learned to control our fear, to feel it but not obey it. The observer's lights flickered. This is unusual. Most species are dominated by their instincts, fight or flight, attack or flee. You suggest that humans can choose to ignore both. We can, with practice and training, smiled slightly. I was a teacher for 6 years before I became an ambassador. I worked with young children. They can be very challenging. They scream and cry and sometimes they hurt you. If I reacted with fear or anger every time, I would never have survived. So you treated the predator cub as you would treat a human child. I treated him as a child. The species does not matter. Fear does not matter. What matters is understanding what the child needs. The observer was silent for a long moment. Its lights pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. We have recorded your words. They will be added to our archives. Another pause. We have one more observation to share with you. Yes. They have been part of the Galactic Union for 3,000 years. In that time, no species has ever approached them without showing fear. They have been isolated, treated as monsters, kept at the edges of society. Their children grow up knowing that everyone in the galaxy is afraid of them. Felt a weight settle in her chest. That is very sad. Last night you showed their child something he has never experienced: acceptance, kindness, a reaction that was not based on fear. The observer's lights brightened. You may not understand the importance of this, but we do. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have watched species destroy each other over less than this. What you did was small, a smile, a piece of candy, but small things can change the galaxy. I did not mean to change anything, said quietly. I just wanted to help a scared child. That, the observer said, is precisely why it matters. You did not act for political gain. You did not calculate the benefits. You simply cared. This is rare. This is valuable. This is. The observer seemed to search for the right word. This is human. The meeting ended shortly after. As walked back to her quarters, she thought about what the observer had said. She had come to space hopping to make friends, to build relationships between Earth and the galaxy. She had not expected to change anything important. But maybe, she thought, that was how change always happened. Not through grand plans and big speeches. through small moments of kindness that no one expected. When she reached her room, she found a gift waiting outside her door. It was a small box made of dark metal, decorated with symbols she did not recognize. A note was attached, written in careful letters. For the human who was not afraid, from. She opened the box. Inside was a small carved figure of a creature with big ears and a wagging tail. It was crude, obviously made by young hands, but could see what it was supposed to be. It was a cub smiling. She held the small figure to her chest and felt tears form in her eyes. On the other side of the station, a species that had been alone for 3,000 years had finally found someone who saw them as more than monsters. And it had all started with a smile. 3 days passed. Continued her diplomatic work, meeting with representatives from dozens of species. But everywhere she went, beings stared at her differently than before. Some looked at her with confusion, others with curiosity, a few with something that might have been admiration. The footage from the reception had spread across the station. Then it spread to other stations. Then to planets. Within a week, billions of beings across the galaxy had watched a small human woman smile at a predator cub and offer him candy. Reactions varied. The collective released an official statement calling behavior reckless and irresponsible. They warned other prey species about the dangers of humans and suggested that Earth should be watched closely. Any species that does not fear predators, the statement said, cannot be trusted to make rational decisions. But other species had different opinions. The Assembly, a group of small insect-like beings known for their careful diplomacy, sent a formal invitation to visit there. "We are curious about a species that responds to danger with kindness," their message said. "We believe we have much to learn from each other." The Federation, a species of giant beings covered in thick armor, requested a meeting with. When she arrived, their ambassador, a creature 3 meters tall with a face like carved stone, bowed so low that his head touched the floor. "Among my people," he said, "courage is the highest virtue. We have seen many forms of courage, the courage to fight, the courage to die, but we have never seen the courage to show mercy to one who could destroy you. Your actions have earned our respect, Ambassador Park." Bowed in return. "Thank you, but I do not think what I did was courageous. I think it was simply necessary." "That," the ambassador said, "is what makes it true courage." Followed to every meeting, taking notes and helping with translation. He had stopped shaking, but he still watched them carefully whenever they were near. "I do not understand," he said one evening as they ate dinner in their quarters. "You keep saying that what you did was normal, that any human would have done the same, but I am human and I was terrified. I ran away. I am ashamed." Put down her chopsticks and looked at him kindly. "There is no shame in fear. Fear is natural. What matters is what you do after the fear passes. You came back, did you not? You stood beside me at every meeting. You did not run away from the work." "But I did not help the child." "You did. You are young, you have not had as much practice as I have." She picked up her chopsticks again. "When I first started teaching, I was afraid of my students, not because they were dangerous, but because I did not know how to reach them. I made many mistakes. I raised my voice when I should have listened. I punished when I should have understood. It took years for me to learn that children do not need us to be perfect. They need us to be patient." "How is that related to what happened with?" "Because fear and impatience come from the same place. They come from not understanding. When you do not understand something, it becomes frightening. When you take time to learn, the fear disappears." She smiled. "Was frightened because he did not understand why everyone hated him. I was not frightened because I understood what he was feeling. Understanding removes fear." Was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I would like to learn how to be less afraid, how to understand better." "Then start by paying attention," said. "Watch, listen, ask questions, and most importantly, be willing to be wrong. The moment you think you know everything is the moment you stop learning." The next day brought an unexpected development. The Galactic Council, the governing body of the Union, called an emergency session. The topic was humanity. Sat in the gallery, watching as representatives from hundreds of species debated her actions. Some called her dangerous, others called her remarkable. They demanded that humans be classified as a chaotic element and restricted from certain diplomatic functions. But then Clan Mother stood. The hall fell silent, rarely spoke at council sessions. When they did, it was usually to demand respect or respond to insults. No one expected what said next. "I have been a mother for 15 years, she began. Her voice was rough but steady. "I have raised my son on a world where everything wants to kill you. I have taught him to hunt, to fight, to survive. But I could not teach him how to live in a galaxy that fears him." She looked around the room at the assembled species. "Every day of his life, my son has been told that he is a monster. He has been chased from playing areas. He has been friends. He has watched adults scream and run at the sight of him. He is a child. He does not understand why everyone hates him." The hall was completely quiet now, even the listened. "3 days ago, my son reached his breaking point. He ran to the only person who had shown him kindness and grabbed her arm. In that moment, I thought I had lost him. I thought the guards would kill him. I thought," her voice cracked, "I thought I had failed as a mother." She looked but the human did not scream. She did not run. She looked at my son and saw what no one else in this galaxy has ever seen. She saw a child, just a child, nothing more, nothing less. Turned back to the council. "You ask what humans are. You ask if they are dangerous. I will tell you what I know. Humans are the first species in 3,000 years to look at my people without fear. They are the first to offer kindness instead of weapons. They are the first to treat our children like children." She stood taller. "If that makes them dangerous, then we need more danger in this galaxy. If that makes them chaotic, then we need more chaos. Because what we have now is not working. We have spent thousands of years divided by fear. Maybe it is time to try something else." She sat down. The hall erupted in noise. Some shouted in agreement. Others argued against her. They walked out in protest. But as watched the chaos, she noticed something. Many representatives were not shouting. They were thinking. They were considering words, weighing them against their old beliefs. Change was not happening overnight, but it was starting. That evening, received a private message from the Galactic Council Secretary. The emergency session had ended without a decision. Humanity would remain unrestricted, for now. But a new committee was being formed to study human psychology and behavior. "They want to understand us," said, reading the message over her shoulder. "Is that good or bad?" "It is good," said. "Understanding removes fear, remember. The more they study us, the less they will be afraid. And the less they are afraid, the more they will see us as partners instead of threats. And what if they study us and decide we are dangerous after all?" Smiled. "Then we will just have to prove them wrong, one scared child at a time." Outside her window, the stars shone bright and endless. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were watching footage of a human and a predator cub. They were asking questions they had never asked before. What if we were wrong about them? What if kindness is stronger than fear? What if everything could change? Did not have all the answers, but she knew one thing for certain. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galaxy, and they had done it not with weapons or wealth, but with a smile and a piece of butterscotch candy. It was, she thought, a very good start. 1 week after the reception incident, received a formal request from Clan Mother. The message was simple. "I would speak with you alone. It is important." Wanted to come, but asked him to stay. "Some conversations need to happen without witnesses," she said. "Trust me." The meeting place was a small room in the section of the station. Had never been there before. The hallways were darker than the rest of the station, and the air was warmer. She could smell the same pine and iron scent she had noticed at the reception. was waiting inside. The clan mother sat on a low cushion, her massive body folded into a surprisingly graceful position. Without the formal robes she had worn at the reception, she looked different, more tired, more real. "Please sit," said, gesturing to a cushion across from her. Sat, the cushion was surprisingly comfortable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, seemed to be studying, her yellow eyes moving slowly across the human's face. "I have thought much about what happened," finally said. "I have tried to understand it, but I cannot." "What do you mean?" "You did not run, you did not scream. Every species runs from us, every species screams. It is instinct, it is survival, but you," shook her head, "you smiled, you played with my son like he was any other child. How is this possible?" Considered the question carefully. "May I ask you something first?" Nodded. "When grabbed my sleeve, were you afraid for me or for him?" The clan mother's eyes widened slightly. It was a question no one had asked her before. "For him. I knew the guards would shoot. I knew they would kill my son to protect someone else. I have seen it happen before. Young killed because they were seen as threats when they were only playing." "Playing," repeated softly. "That is what I saw too." "What?" "When ran toward me, I did not see an attack. I saw a child who was overwhelmed and scared and reaching out for help. On my world, children do the same thing. They grab, they pull, sometimes they use their teeth because they do not have the words to express their feelings." Leaned forward. "I was a teacher. I have worked with hundreds of children. I have learned to read their behavior, was not trying to hurt me. He was trying to connect with me. He just did not know how." Was silent for a very long time. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "No one has ever said that about my people. No one has ever looked at a child and seen anything but a future killer. You are the first in 3,000 years." "Then maybe," said gently, "it is time for things to change." How can we change what everyone believes? The galaxy fears us. They have always feared us. Our own history is filled with violence. We cannot erase that. "You are right, you cannot erase the past, but you can build a different future." Reached into her bag and pulled out the small carved figure that had made for her. She held it up so could see. "Your son made this. He carved a cub smiling. I have looked at it every night since I received it. Do you know what I see when I look at it?" "What?" "Hope, a child who wants the world to see his people differently. A child who still believes things can change." Placed the figure between them. "That hope is more powerful than any fear. It is worth fighting for." Reached out and picked up the small carving. Her massive claws, which could cut through metal, held it with incredible gentleness. "My son has never had a friend," she said quietly. "Other children are too rough. Alien children are not allowed near him. He spends his days alone, reading and carving." She looked at. "He asked me this morning if he could see you again. He wanted to know if you would teach him how humans greet each other." Felt her heart warm. "I would be happy to teach him. I would be happy to be his friend." Set down the carving and did something did not expect. She extended her massive clawed hand, palm up. "Among my people, this is the gesture of alliance. We show our claws, our weapons, and then we place them in the hands of another. It means we trust them. It means we choose not to fight them. It means we are bound together." Looked at the hand. The claws were long and sharp, each one capable of ending her life in an instant. In the claws she could see the history of the hunters, predators, killers. But she could also see something else. A mother who loved her son, a leader who wanted peace, a being who was reaching out for connection after 3,000 years of isolation. Placed her small hand in its massive palm. The claws closed gently around her fingers, not tight enough to hurt, just tight enough to hold. "This is the human gesture," said. "We call it a handshake. It means we meet as equals. It means we choose trust over fear." His eyes glistened with tears. "Then let it be so. From this day forward, the Inhumans are allies. Our children will play together. Our people will learn from each other. and perhaps in time the galaxy will learn from us both." They sat together for another hour, talking about their worlds, their peoples, their hopes. By the time left, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Something real had happened, something important. When she returned to her quarters, she found waiting anxiously. "What happened? What did she say? Are we in danger?" Smiled. "We just formed humanity's first alliance with an alien species." Stared at her. "What, how, which species?" The predators." The predators. Sat down and poured herself a cup of tea. "History will record this as a great diplomatic achievement. Speeches will be written about it. Politicians will claim credit for it. But do you know what actually happened?" "What?" "A scared child grabbed my sleeve and I did not run away. That is all. That is the entire foundation of this alliance." She took a sip of tea. "Sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest moments. Remember that. When you become an ambassador yourself someday, remember that kindness is more powerful than any weapon." Sat down slowly. His face was thoughtful. "I think I am beginning to understand, but I have one more question." "Yes." "Do you have any more butterscotch candy? I think I would like to try being kind to myself." Laughed and reached into her bag. She pulled out the package and handed him 2 candies. "Keep one for yourself," she said, "and give one to a new friend." Years later, historians would trace humanity's rise in the galaxy back to this moment. They would write books about the psychology of human diplomacy. They would study the footage of the reception endlessly. They would interview and everyone else who was present. But they would never fully understand what had happened, because it was not about strategy or politics or careful planning. It was about something simpler, something older, something that existed in the hearts of all living beings, but that fear often buried too deep to find. It was about looking at someone different and seeing not a threat, but a person. Grew up to become the first ambassador to Earth. He kept a jar of butterscotch candies on his desk, and every visitor asked about them. He always told the same story. "When I was young," he would say, "I was afraid and alone. Everyone in the galaxy looked at me like I was a monster, but one day I met a human. She did not run. She did not scream. She looked at me and smiled, and she gave me a piece of candy." He would pick up the jar and shake it gently, listening to the candies rattle inside. "That human taught me that courage is not about having claws or fangs. It is about having kindness when kindness is hardest. That is what humans are. That is why they are our friends. And that is why I keep these candies, to remind myself, to remind everyone." And then he would offer a candy to his visitor, and the cycle would continue. Kindness spreading through the galaxy, one sweet at a time. Park never considered herself a hero. She was just a teacher who became an ambassador, a woman who saw a scared child and chose to help. But sometimes, that is exactly what the universe needs. Someone who does not run. Someone who smiles. Someone who reaches out. And that is the story of how humanity found its place among the stars. Not through war, not through wealth. Through a smile, a piece of candy, and the courage to be kind.